Welcome, crew, to What Are Your Three, a Channel 3 podcast, where we take a member of the Channel 3 community, discuss 3 games of their choosing, go through some honorable mentions and some other odds and ends to have a nice little video game discussion. I'm Dan Tucker, and with me, as always, is Ray.
What's going on, everybody? Today's guest, I'm really excited because we have a little bit of a different podcast, different show tonight. If you listened to the stream, or the party night stream, the second week when I was on, we had some background music on it. All the music, the background music, the starting music, the in-between music has been graciously provided by Castor Garden, known as Destroy the Grave, but you can find him at Castor Garden. If you go to c3.gg/Castor Garden, it will send you straight to his Spotify page. And he's the man behind all the music, the man behind Thank You, Joel. Castor Garden, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing fantastic. I actually feel bad I haven't stayed up late enough to watch those streams, but thank you. Thank you for having me on.
I mean, we're excited to have you here. I'm super excited for this, and I haven't totally said why, and I'm going to get into it as we go through the show, but I've really been looking forward to this episode in particular. So
have I.
We're going to get into this. The first game on the list, and we're talking about kind of the music in games and games that have influenced you and your music. And we're going to start with Halo 2.
Yes.
And so before we get into the game, I just want to ask kind of a general question. So you're here on Channel 3, which is the website for gaming, and you've shared music with us and how it kind of intersects with gaming. How did those two worlds kind of come together for you? The whole gaming and music world, because that you could tell in your music that they're together.
Yeah, definitely. For a very long time, I wanted to be a video game composer in some sort of fashion. Just wanted to be a musician. But yeah, games have been in my life for a long time now. Since I want to say the exact age, maybe I want to say like 7. I really got into games, But I've been into music since I was like 5, maybe 4 or 5 years old with violin and all that. So both things have been very important in my life. But as we get into Halo 2, I won't speak too much into it. I think that's where I found that there was this interconnection of music and games. And I think those two loves of mine, where I love video games, I love the worlds of video games, I love the building of it and the anticipation of video games. And also the same thing with music, the world building, the anticipation, the emotions behind music. Both things can come together. And there's a lot of influence between video games and music for me. So I like to just marry the two. Especially you'll definitely hear from my new EP, Controllers and Cartridges. I think the title speaks for itself that I made these two loves come together.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So let's get into Halo 2 here. It is... Yes. It was voted Rolling Stone magazine best original video game soundtrack. One and 2. It wins it both times. Probably one of the more recognizable theme songs from a video game. I mean, outside of kind of like the older, maybe like Tetris music or Mario, that theme song that everyone knows. But this one's different. I tried my best looking up facts. Is that it kind of introduced a whole non-linear music in games, where the music follows what's actually happening in game. It's not just kind of this repeating track.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, let's start with that. Is that something that's something you must notice when you're playing games, especially something like Halo 2?
Halo 2 is very special to me because, again, I've been playing games since, say, a young child. Halo 2 came out when I was 13 years old, and that was very formative for me because I didn't play the first Halo. I started with Halo 2. And when I came out at 13, man, that opened my eyes to what music can do in games. Like, that's what blew my mind. It was just like, oh my God, we can actually make something that's meaningful in a video game. Not only just with the music, but the gameplay, the storyline of Halo 2. Like, that's what really kind of cemented me. Like, oh, I'm a gamer now. Like that's just my identity. Like, I'm a gamer now. Yeah, no, Halo 2, all the Halos are composed by Martin O'Donnell, which fun little factoid about, especially the theme music behind Halo. The that choir, one of the most iconic sounds in the Halo franchise. He wrote that in his car on his way to work. Like, literally just everybody's like, oh my God, that's so crazy. It's so cool. It must have taken him days. No, he literally just wrote it on the way to work, just driving to work. it's just insanity. But yeah, there's just a lot of iconic sounds, like you said, non-linear, where you're talking about the guitar sounds that are just really pushing things forward, which is what inspired me to do Star Commander on the newest EP. Have that guitar in there. There's something about that electric guitar feel that really pushes the narrative forward. And I'm just like, I want that in Star Commander. Like, there's something about it that just kind of makes it sound unique and earth tone, but also spacey, ethereal. I don't know what the word is. Yeah, no, Halo 2 soundtrack is just iconic, forward moving, emotion driving, and it was a game changer in video game music at the time. Yeah.
So when you're playing games, are you more into the story solo player version of the game, or did you get into the multiplayer too?
Oh no, single player all the way.
Okay.
I'm very much. I know it's like surprising to hear, but I'm so much of an introvert where I'm very much a people person. I'm a golden retriever when you meet me. But holy cow, am I such an introvert? Like, if I love to meet people, but more than 10, I'm like, no more. I'm gonna go.
The term is ambivert for us.
I can use that one, ambivert. Yeah, no, it's I always loved the single player, and my internet wasn't always good growing up, so I didn't really rely on multiplayer. So I didn't get in multiplayer until college, honestly. So like, I played Team Fortress 2 growing up. But no, I was always that single player guy, never on the internet.
All right, so let's focus back on what you brought up, the whole guitar, because that was kind of your connection from Halo to the music you're putting out now. What is it about the guitar? Because I'm with you. Whenever there's a boss battle or something comes up, you're right. There's a guitar playing, telling you to go forward.
Yes.
Why is that? Why is the guitar and kind of that rock and roll, like why does that make people think, okay, it's time to go?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's because we've grew up in, especially, okay, I'm going to go philosophy wise, right? So in a way of how a lot of songs use the same 4 chords, right? We go to Let It Be, to a lot of Ed Sheeran songs. They use
I was gonna say Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, Ed Sheeran does it. He's very open about it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's that comfort of G, C, E, D. I want to say the 4 chords. I'm stupid, but
again, you're rolling with that. We're just sitting here. Okay, yeah, it sounds good. You're making stuff out. Yeah, okay.
But that's the thing. You vibe with those pop tunes, right? Like, everybody does it. There's a super tonic, right, that I could get into, but I'll bore you with. But it's the familiarity of those 4 chords that make you really vibe with those pop songs. Is that sense of familiarity. Going back to your question of why is it the guitar, I think especially gamers, you grew up in the 80s. You grew up in that time of like really hair metal was its thing, right? That really pushed you forward. That was a very prime example of music that pumps you up, because the 80s, it was all about the hair metal. Flash forward into like going into the 2000s, the late 90s, you're familiar, you're comfortable with that tone of the guitar to push you forward, that mentality. I think it's because of 80s kids growing up that you got to hear a guitar and it's like, oh, that's that mind trick of like, oh, let's go, let's freaking go. I don't think there's an innate, like, inevitable answer to why the guitar pushes you forward, but I think it's that familiarity, just like with the 4 chords in pop music. I think electric guitar was driven into our heads like, this is what's going to push the narrative forward, both in music and video games. Does that make any sense?
Well, I have a simpler answer, because see, I wandered into IMDb looking for some stuff, and Ray didn't see the facts on there, because what they did was they originally tested a different sound for the Halo 2 soundtrack, but it was just 2 Budweiser cans cracking and an eagle screech, and they didn't think that would work as well with the international audiences, so they just
I think they tried that for, pre-production, mid-production, but they said, Marty, can we call you Marty? How about lose the cans of PBR?
A little too American.
It's a little too American. Let's pick up the pace with some Gibson guitars here. That's my theory. I don't know if I'm right or not.
It sounds good to me.
Yeah. I'm usually right.
I'll ask one more thing for Halo 2, because you had that Gregorian chant. Again, almost a throwaway idea, right? To just like in the car wrote it, and then and it becomes just this sound. You get these funny videos of like high school kids in a bathroom, like singing it because it echoes in the bathroom and does all that. Do you ever look to put kind of like these kind of like out there sounds into your music? Like it almost doesn't fit, but it goes in and it's just adds a layer to it.
You know what? I was actually it's funny, before I started Castor Garden, I had a project called Adam Evault, which is just my name, and I put in it was an EP called The Essence of Life, and it was a story about this space mission going out there, and it has a lot to do with depression and anxiety, and Kylie Brown was in it, so that was cool of her. But in one track called Infelicity, I put in this weird ethereal kind of spacey kind of sound. I wanted people to feel anxious listening to Infelicity, and I even put in some weird radio signals of seeking for help in it. And I even had Marcus, who is the voice behind Boss Battle. Marcus is on all of my projects, but I had him do some deep breathing, panic attack breathings, and I stretched it out even more so. I wanted something weird and anxious sounding. And even after that, right before I started Castor Garden, I was developing the full-length album for Adam Evault, and it was getting weird. Like it was getting like really deep and angsty, I want to get. But I just really felt drawn to just very happy music, and I was like, I want to be silly. I gotta want to do like weird cinematic stuff. But to answer your question, yes. In fact, the one track I was developing, I had a phone call coming in, and I had almost like a Ludwig Göransson kind of sound to it. If you don't know Ludwig Göransson, Tenant, Red, he did the soundtrack to Community. He also developed Mandalorian. Yep. So that kind of sounds. So, but yeah, that went on hiatus real hardcore. But yeah, that's mostly for the Adam Evault project. Yeah.
All right, on to game 2, Oxenfree. Composed by, I'll go with Andrew Rohrman to start, but that's a much more boring response, because when you look up Scientific, you find out he was American Scientific, but had to lose that name for obvious reasons with the other American Scientific. Lost out to that, but really had to go with something else, because he just looks like Middle America's dad. If you just look at his IMDb
He's
picture,
very private too.
Yeah, it's understandably there, but. This was his. Well, hang on. I got to get something out of the way first here, because this is going to be good for Ray. So while looking up his history, because again, I want to take a little different approach for this, and Oxenfree's out there. If anybody hasn't played it and has a Netflix account, it's actually free with your Netflix account. You've got it tied in there. Mm-hmm. But the fun fact about this guy, his most important credit. Do you know what his most important credit is?
It's the most important. Didn't he write music for a museum in Seattle?
Maybe he did, but that's not his most important credit. His most important credit is the sound design for the Xbox 360.
Yes. Oh, why did I forget that?
Before he got into video game soundtracks, he did the sound design for this. He had some indie bands up in Seattle and some different projects and whatnot. But that was the part that cracked me up, as I'm looking through his history, just kind of trying to understand it, and I'm like, oh, wait a second, this is gold right here.
Yeah, dude, it's wild. It's wild to think about. In fact, another little factoid going back to Halo 2, Martin O'Donnell, here's another little factoid. He wrote the jingles for the Flintstone Spider-Mans.
That's one of those Michael Bolton, like, who wrote the Band-Aids, like all these jingles, or was it him or somebody else like that all these Allstate jingles and State Farm and all that's like one of the old 70s composer types.
It's like one of those things, like you didn't think about like who wrote it, but it's just someone you
like 75 of them all come to the same guy. That's I want to say it's Michael Bolton, but anyway, so Oxenfree. Sorry for the little sidebar there. So which came first? Was this the music or the game?
The game came first, and the music on this one really. When I say like all these games that I listed here influenced my sound, I think Oxenfree really influenced my sound the most out of everything. And I think you can kind of hear it. Going back to even my old Castor Garden stuff, I had the same kind of beats, the same kind of like pattern of chord progression almost. I'm not saying like I'm the same. Oh, I'm the god of video game music, like scientific, but like I definitely think that Oxenfree really pushed me forward. You know, a little backstory on me is that I actually gave up music in most of my 20s, like about 21 to 28 or 29. I gave it up. Like I just like didn't want anything to do with it. I was doing something else. I was a youth pastor for 10 years, so didn't really pick it up. But when I played Oxenfree, I think starting to something click in 2016, 2017. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Like, why did I drop music altogether? And I just started to like play a little keyboard again because of the music of Oxenfree. But I was playing it, and I think this is what really pushed me forward to get back into music. And you can really hear the influence in a lot of Castor Garden stuff. In my opinion, I don't know if I'm right or not.
No, you know what? I actually will agree with that because I was joking. I sent Ray a message as we were divvying up the games. I said I'm going to be spending most of the day with one ear listening to some of these soundtracks that I kind of get a vibe for this thing. And this is what I'm like, okay, I could see this one. This is this was one. Hang on, I've got to go through my amateur, and we were joking beforehand, before we started recording, that we'll probably end up at the end here that the musical talent here is me banging a couple of coconuts together, and maybe I can get a rhythm. But outside of previously aforementioned Rock Band games, so maybe you probably need to have colors on the coconuts and a beat coming at me in that direction. I can make it work. But I've got like 5 different gameplay videos open that I was listening and didn't watch. I didn't watch any gameplay. I was just listening to everything that was happening.
Yeah.
I will say this was very full sounding to me is the first thing I'm going to say. I wrote down some words. Cavernous was the second word. It was kind of like an oral Rorschach test for myself. That there was a lot more of like and it fits with the vibe of the game for this one. So there's that, and then just like the synth like piece of this is not overwhelming. There's some stuff that's out there that like I think Stranger Things broke everybody for a while because they did. They went a few degrees past what would normally be acceptable amounts of synth after 1989, but made it work.
Yeah,
and again with Oxenfree, it's just kind of in there because there's it's not uneasiness, because we'll talk about uneasiness when we get to honorable mentions, but this one just has like there's a degree of the uneasiness with it, but it's also not like unnerving or I don't know what the word I'm looking for is there, but like, that's kind of the vibes I took away from this one.
It's funny because if you watch the making of Oxenfree, the game directors who were former Telltale workers, the game directors of Oxenfree of Night School Studios, they were looking for a composer. I knew Andrew, Scientific. They knew him from like another, like I think they went to high school or college together. I can't remember. They knew the guy, and they're like, well, we need a composer. Hey, is Andrew still doing music? They were just like, is he still doing music? They called him up, and they invited him to the studio and said, hey, this is the game. Do you think you can make something? He played like maybe 2 or 3 hours of the game. He's like, I got this, and just went on his way and came out with the Oxenfree soundtrack. He fit the vibe. He knew what he was doing, and a lot of the game. I might be going off the track of your original question here.
Don't worry about it. Keep rolling.
Yeah, no, it's what's really interesting about his sound design, like you said, it's a lot more analog rather than synthetic. There are a lot of really good instruments here, but all those radio sounds that you hear, even in the music, all those radio sounds, he actually picked up real historical World War II radios and recorded the audio from them. Like, he didn't get any like sound splices on the internet. He picked up real radios and just started messing with them and made music from the radios, which is absolutely insanity. So like, you'll see his basement and it's just filled with like toys. It's wild to think about, but he's very much into like the real depth of the sound and like trying to make something real. And even so, when he was writing it, each character has their own melody. So whenever a character comes up, they have their own set of keys. They have their own kind of feel, unsettledness, so that you kind of get this hint of like, oh, Jonas is coming up. Oh, Nona's coming up. But yeah, no, he really did a lot of work with not a lot of knowledge of the game, which is wild to think about.
There's a lot to be said for that, because you look at, again, sorry, Ray, for movie corner here, but there's something to be said for the original sound design where you're not using canned sounds from a library somewhere else. And like Lucasfilm was always big on that. Like, you can't use their blaster sound. You can't use their lightsaber sound. Like those sounds you are not allowed to use. And here we are, 46 years later, 46 years later. And we're like, okay, that is distinctly belonging to this, as opposed to, if you use that canned radio tuner sound that came from something else, you're going to think of some Netflix show or something like that used the same canned sound that you're taken out of the Oxenfree world, as opposed to like, is synesthesia the right word, where you're like, you've got the visual and the audio really matching up with this thing too. There's something to that like those original sounds let you just stay in the game and not get pulled out of it too.
Yeah, I wish I had the time and the resources to really get that setting. If you ever listen to my music and there's like a setting going on, like footsteps or a door opening, that's all like coming from Splice. So those are all sound effects I use from Splice. Not because I'm like, oh, this is the easier route, but I'm a line cook in a restaurant, so I don't have a lot of hours to give. But yeah, no, I like setting the tones for something. But if I had the time and the resources in terms of like getting really good audio of certain settings, that makes a huge difference to use like the actual sound versus like getting somebody else's sound clip and trying to make it sound good. Like I think in boss battle into that, I have swords coming out. I have footsteps, a sword pickup, and a sheath. I all made them sound fairly good. But there's something to say.
It doesn't take away from it at all. There's a good energy to that track. So there's
thank you.
It doesn't pull away from that. And there's again, for anybody who hasn't listened, you were nice enough to send it early to us too, so we got to take a listen to it. But there's a good energy to that. I like how you bring up the boss battle one. That's got a good energy.
That one took obviously the longest to write. That actually took I want to say 5 weeks to write and to melody out, and I'm still not happy with it. I'm still just like, I don't know. I hear it on my phone, and I hear like every time it releases, I hear it. I listen to it on my phone on Spotify. I'm like, I put in too many highs.
Relax, you're fine. Relax.
I guess, but yeah, no. There's something to say that like even I know that like if I had an actual sword to like record with, there's something different about that. There's something much more unique and I don't know, something a little bit more powerful behind it, rather than just taking off like a sound off of Splice and trying to make it sound good. It still sounds good. Like I said, I'm still happy with what I make, but you can hear the difference where Scientific uses real World War II radios, and there's something a little bit more analog behind that for sure.
Yeah, you say that now, and then we're going to see you go full Dewey Cox and like have 27 different swords and she. We need more didgeridoos. We need more time for the didgeridoos.
Oh, trust me. Like I said, when I have the time and the resources, like my wife is not going to be happy with the amount of just random crap that's going to be just lying around the house here.
Why is there a 27th sword coming in here? I do not understand.
Well, you see, I'm building the new album, and there's not necessarily swords in this one, but there might be swords in the second album.
Do you hear when you unsheath this sword?
Yeah,
like it's almost there. It's like one degree off, but then when you sheath it, it's totally 17, wrong.
Yeah, it's sword 17 that really makes the difference here. You got to understand here. Please don't leave me.
But maybe if I mix sword 3 and sword 17, I mix them together.
Mix them.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to game 3 and in Hue here, which I am not great with Greek, but I'm going to go with Alkis Livanthos is my best attempt at making any semblance of something Greek sounding.
I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's also a very private person. He doesn't really put out a lot of music. He's not really
only IMDb credit is this game.
Yes. All the other music is just his own original sound, and it's such a shame. Like this sound, I when I say Oxenfree like really developed me in my sound, Halo 2 is what changed my perspective of games, and Oxenfree really affected my sound. Hue is what set my tones up to being something simple and powerful. Like it's just very much one instrument, maybe a couple instruments here and there, but for the most part, its simplicity gives a lot of power behind the music. And I think Hue really nails that.
This is a game that, first of all, on sale for the Switch for $249 right now. So that's a pickup to be on the lookout for here. But this is not one you pointed out right before we started recording. I've got to get added to the library here, and is on my to-do list for this evening. But described as a vibrant, award-winning puzzle adventure where you alter the world by changing its background color, which is a weird description. But if you watch just the trailer for this and you listen to the soundtrack, it's really cool because like you'll have a boulder coming at you and you're in a 2D environment. The boulder is orange, the background is blue. You pull up a menu and you swap the background to orange, the boulder is neutralized. So it's just all these puzzles as you're going through the game of working your way through. But anyway, so really cool looking game, and hey, for $2, who can argue? Unfortunately, by the time people are going to hear this, because we are recording a few weeks early, I think its sale's over. So we'll have to figure out some way to try to get people to take a look at. That's a $2 chuck right there is going to get some people's attention for sure. But anyway, I just have to say before we get going, what a time for indie games. Where you have this, thing of just like a black background. Like it does not look like anything else. This is not gameplay that would obviously come up, but there's this just full game here that's out there. It doesn't have to conform to like, okay, we have to stick with a platforming framework. No, it's just out there. But anyway, back to the main topic of conversation here. It's a very different vibe from Oxenfree that has this like ethereal, again, all those pieces, a little more, I don't want to say upbeat because there's some darkness. There's some underlying darkness to this one, but it's also got a little bit more of an upbeat nature to this one. This is a soundtrack I could see myself just like putting on and not going into like Oxenfree on. The hair would start going up on the back of my neck probably at certain points. I'm like, no, I'm not, because Oxenfree has those points of discomfort in the game and discomfort in the soundtrack that are on purpose that the music helps to bring out. But I have not played this one. I only spent some time listening to the soundtrack itself, and that's but that's how I got into Ori, which I'm sure Ray has got an entire monologue prepared for why Ori's not on our list today, but we'll come back to that another time. But but anyway,
Ori is another one. Yeah, but no, like the thing about Hue is that, okay, this is going to sound weird, but when you listen to the soundtrack, you can smell the dust on the piano. Like that's how like real this feels, like you can smell that basement piano and like the comfort behind it. It gets you in a mood, but also brings you comfort at the same time. It's a very unique soundtrack, and I wish he did more than that, but so far it is. That's his only IMDb credit.
So you've played through this game. How did you find this game, first of all? Because that's the other thing with some of these indie games. I'm just like, how do people find this stuff?
I don't remember how I found it. I want to say
like a feral cat. It just wandered into your backyard. Like, oh, I guess I have this game now. It's like,
I remember I started playing it. Like, when did this come out? 2017?
Something around, yeah. So it's around there. Again, I'll get in the library. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I remember I played it pretty recently, like once it released. I think a YouTuber was playing it. I can't even remember which one, but I remember someone playing it or somebody telling me about it. I was like, I'll pick it up, and man, I was just in awe of like, or maybe I don't know. I really don't know how it came into my life, but I remember just being like amazed by the gameplay. I played this game at least 10 times, at least. Just because the puzzles and the music and the setting, the colors you can do, it's just a really well functioning game. The narrative is just very smooth and comforting, but also giving you a challenge with the puzzles. But again, it all comes down to the music. I remember there was one day where I just turn on the game, just the menu music, and I just let that music play in the background. Just the menu music, I can listen to 10 hours straight. I don't know what it is. It's just very much just a nice, comforting vibe to it.
My only running theory is Bono dropped this onto your PlayStation. It just appeared one day like that U2 album did.
Dan, do you have a menu song that you can listen to, Dan? Could you think of a menu song that you go to?
That's a good question.
Because I can. Just the fact you said menu song, it came up. For me, it's Dearly Beloved, the menu song for Kingdom Hearts games.
Yes. That's a hard one. Yeah.
That's my menu song.
I need to look. I know I've got one. We got a quest coming up. Hang on. I gotta do the math and figure out the day this releases. We get menu song. Make a note for myself here.
It's not like I have a bunch of menu songs in my head. That's just the one. You said menu song. I think Dearly Beloved.
Yeah. If you ask me again, like what's another one you would listen to? I don't know off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. The Madden 24 menu. It's like that. No, but this one I literally have put on in the background. I just turn on the game and I just want this menu music just being playing in the background over and over again. Yeah, this one is just very special to me. It's just the simplicity of it and the power behind it. It reminds me a lot of Grease's soundtrack, where there's a lot of simplicity but power behind it. And I like that. And I think Hugh's music really taught me a lesson in a way of just like you can be simple and not have 1,000 different instruments playing and just have a lot of power behind it. But it taught me a lot of lessons about that kind of sound.
Ray, you know how to say it now. He snuck it in there for you.
Well, I learned. Let me tell you, I was so annoyed with myself. I played the whole game. I played through the whole thing, loved it, and then afterwards realized I called it Grease too, but it didn't occur to me that it was just gray in Spanish. Like the game is the game is in Spanish, and it just didn't hit me as I was playing it.
You know what's funny is that who corrected me? I called it Gris. You want to know who corrected me?
Who corrected you on that one there?
Mr. Laugh at Brian McGinnis. He's the one that corrected me. He's like, why are you calling
it
Gris?
Game. That's his game.
Yeah, he's the one who turned me on to it.
He spread that infection,
Yeah, me too. I loved it. It was a beautiful game.
Yeah, and he's like, it's called Grease. I'm like, sorry, Brian, don't shoot me now, but...
No, you brought me back to high school Spanish now that you pointed that out, thanks.
Grease.
I was like, I don't know a lick of Spanish, so just like I was like, oh, Gris. It's like it's Grease. I'm like, I'm sorry.
I played, and once I knew it, I was like, oh yeah, colors, the whole game. Like,
no, it's
duh.
Yeah, I would put Hugh and Grease's soundtrack in the same perspective for me in terms of teaching me what lesson it is, just the simplicity of power or power of simplicity, however you want to put it.
Yep.
Hey, it's Dan here with a fresh ad break to let you know that one of our own, they go by Destroy the Grave on channel3.gg, but they are known professionally when they record as Castor Garden. Castor Garden dropping a new recording, controllers and cartridges, coming to Spotify September 30th. You go to c3.gg/Castor Garden. It will take you directly to their Spotify page. Not only will you hear their wide range of music, some smooth, some relaxing, some with a little extra intensity, but you'll hear guest spots from users like You Exorcist and the founder himself, Joel Willis. Go ahead, make sure you head to c3.gg/Castor Garden and listen to the new recording, controllers and cartridges. Six fresh tracks ready to go. And again, guest spots from fellow Channel 3 users. Check it out, the c3.gg/Castor Garden.
All right, so we finished the top 3. We're going to go to the honorable mentions.
Yes.
And the first one, I'm going to say 10 years ago, I don't buy any of these indie games. Something has happened in the last decade where like I'm going out of my way looking for indie games because these small studios are killing it. I mean, one studio that almost can't call them so small anymore, but Hades is from an independent studio. And
yes.
And man, that game is.
I don't know how they call themselves an independent studio. Just so we're clear, they have no right to call they have no right to call themselves that. They're just not they're not an existing video game studio. They just don't get to say that though.
So, it's Super Giant Games.
They're double A now instead of
they get up there. They have 6 games now. Oh, 5. We got 5 games.
Yeah, they're out there now.
They're out there
I
now
say
for
like
sure.
it's a good time to be an indie game, and I was even gonna say I hope that bleeds into indie artists like musicians,
Mhm.
because me and Weathering Grains, who's also on Channel 3, we're both indie artists. We're not on labels or anything. I never planned to be on a label because labels just screw artists. But yeah, I like the times to be alive for indie games. These just not known studios. I really hope like people are just like, oh man, I really want to find some indie musicians, such as Weathering Grains.
Cue to episode 5. Yeah.
Yes. No, yeah, that's definitely a true thing though. Like a lot of even indie movies are incredible, but there's a lot of heart behind them and indie games too. Yeah.
So we move on. Honorable mentions list. First one, Plague Tale: Innocence.
Yes.
Composed by, I'm going to do my best, Olivier Derivière. It's French. He is French.
Yes.
I know that much.
I believe that is how you pronounce it. I will say this. It's in my honorable mentions, but he's honestly my favorite game composer of all time. Like straight up. Like,
Well,
yeah.
I found it funny because I'm listening to the music and watching some gameplay of Plague Tale, and then going, I went to Wikipedia and known for not this game, known for Streets of Rage 4. That was
Yes.
like the game that showed up, and I'm like, that's crazy. How could this be so different? And I listened to it. I was like, oh, it's the same thing. It's kind of, it's just an upbeat version, but he's doing the same exact thing in both games.
He's got a style, but it translates to so many different games. He also did a game called The Council, which is, if you listen to music from The Council, what a trip. Like, okay, playing the game The Council, I know we're going on a different game here, but if you ever play The Council, what a trip and a half that story is. And the music is just such a trip. But specifically, getting back on this, I don't want to even sidetrack, but yeah, getting back on Plague Tale Innocence, specifically Innocence, I did like Requiem soundtrack, but there's something deep and threatening, I want to say, about Innocence that gives us sort of like lost kind of feel. And that's why I always say Olivier's my favorite composer, is that he really gets that feel in of just like the setting, the time setting, the feeling, the emotion, getting real musicians into it. Real musicians, unlike myself, I'm not real. But yeah, he gets these like really good artists to like really master this craft, like the lutes and the cellos, and it's just very good in this. But the only reason why this is in my honorable rather than my top 3 is that like I don't really think I have Olivier's feel. I just very much appreciate him as an artist rather than something that influenced me as a musician. But yeah, Olivier is like a god tier in terms of gameplay and music.
Well, you picked another one where I kept looking at the awards and all these games. You picked another one where sound design won.
Yes.
Once again.
Yes.
And this was in 2020. They won the sound design for this game here. And you said the music feels like you're lost. And it's very funny because kind of the whole game is if they see you, you lose.
Yes.
Like you can't fight. It's anxiety driven the whole time. It says a puzzle adventure, but it's puzzle and you're sneaking around.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. It's a puzzle of the eyes, I guess you might say. Yeah. No,
this game's always looked too depressing to to me.
Oh, listen to the music. If you think the game looks depressing, the music, it sounds depressing. That's what I mean, where it's just like, I don't think he influenced my sound, but I appreciate Olivier like really putting all of his style in. He's very open on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Soon to be on Channel 3, I hope, if Olivier gets on Channel 3. He's very much open about like he hates when other musicians don't call him a real composer because he's never worked with movies or orchestra. He's like, I've worked with the London Symphony Orchestra. I've worked with respected mandolinists. Like he is a real composer and he wants to give that kind of vibe to other musicians that like doesn't matter if you're making music, you're a real artist. And I very much appreciate him. And my favorite soundtrack he ever did or does, I don't know, is Plague Tale Innocence. I think that one really just made it feel depressing and made it feel like the game was alive,
Well, again, you when you're picking these games, I'm listening to it and and I was thinking of Halo just because I didn't know about the whole. It's the first game that kind of has some music follow the story as opposed to just being adjacent to the story. And I mean, and I felt it watching here. It picks up to let you know you better hurry up, or it's gonna trick you to hurry up because
yes,
you should be anxious about what you're doing right now.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, and I love what Olivier did with that. Like, it made you feel like it. Yeah, he really put the anxiety in you, with everything he does. Yeah.
So, just playing the game itself. Is this a game? Have you played? You played through this whole game? Did you play through the series? Is it a series that you've really enjoyed? Because obviously, you like these kind of like puzzle kind of looking games.
I think Requiem Requiem. Okay, so really side tangent here. Between the Innocence and Requiem, it's a lot like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where Tears of the Kingdom fixes a lot of the combat, a lot of the exploration. I think it fixes a lot. But in both metaphors, I'm in the minority where I like the previous game better. It's like I'm on the previous camp of I like Breath of the Wild better in terms of story and the way you explore. I like the Innocence, where I like the story progression a little bit better, and I like the lack of combat. It makes you feel like you're helpless. So in both ways, I think Requiem fixes a lot of what people are frustrated with, but I'm in the minority camp where I say I think Innocence is better. And I think that in the way of I think Requiem's music is great. I have Requiem on vinyl. Like, I have the soundtrack on vinyl. I do like Innocence better. I don't know why. I'm in the minority. So don't take my word for it.
What's funny is that I would think then, if that's how you kind of look at them, that you would like the first Ori game more than the second.
I did like the first game was what was it called? Will o' the Wisp.
Blind Forest was the first one.
Blind Forest is the first one, yeah.
Yeah, Blind Forest. I did like Blind Forest.
Well, Blind Forest, simpler art style.
Yes.
Travel is you have to go out of your way to travel. So
someone's a little bitter about the targets he's been putting together.
Yeah, no.
I did appreciate the fact that I have to travel.
I'm not gonna go on his podcast and say I have good taste. I'm just saying what I have taste in.
No, it's funny. It's funny because it's very consistent. You know, everything you're saying has been. It's simple and it does a lot with being simple. You don't have to overcomplicate it to make something really great.
Put it this way, and I know audio listeners won't listen to this, but that keyboard right back there, that's what I make all my music on. Like, I just have one keyboard and I make all the music from it. Even the guitar sounds on Star Commander, I put a sound of a guitar and I played it on keyboard. I play it on piano. So that's what I make all my music on. It's just that keyboard. That's it. So simplicity is power, man.
All right, on to our second honorable mention, where I've been alluding to this one at various points as I've talked about some things. We're gonna get into this one here. Watch Dogs 2, composed by Hudson Mohawk. However, again, because that just sounds way cooler than Ross Matthew Burchard, resident of Glasgow, Scotland. Much more interesting this way. DedSec, the Watch Dogs 2 soundtrack. You're not alone with this one. There's you've made some posts on Channel 3. Wheezy Batman has also stood up for this particular soundtrack on the site as well, pushing the tech, the vibe feel. And this is one that I like the first two Watch Dogs games for sure, but this is not a soundtrack I can listen to. This is a soundtrack that is intentionally unnerving. This is a soundtrack that is intentionally, I feel like it is effective because it's intentionally doing these things. It's intentionally grating to me. It's not. I feel like it's an artistic choice to me.
I actually have this soundtrack on vinyl. I actually have it, and I listen to it on vinyl all the time. I am in love with this soundtrack because if you look at Hudson Mohawk, he doesn't really do video. I think this is his only credit on video games. He mostly does experimental club music. That's all he does. And then they brought him on to Watch Dogs 2. And it is, like you said, it's so unnerving and it's so wacky. And I will say it's in my top 3 of video game soundtracks of all time, in my opinion, because of just how wild, crazy, technologically advanced it is. It's just, again, why it's in my honorable mentions, not my top 3. I don't think you'll ever hear me make music like this, but I appreciate it because it's chaotic and yet organized all at the same time. It's a buggy kind of soundtrack, and I love it. I adore this. I adore this one.
Yeah, mission accomplished. I'm not taking shots at it by any stretch. It's just
wild,
funny
though,
to
isn't
hear.
it?
Yeah, it's one that ties in perfectly with the game. And I had to go back because I'm like, I need to listen to this independent of the game now that you brought this up, because in the game, and it was a big jump from the first. So the first one was perfectly fine, but I feel like the soundtrack in the second game was more prevalent. I don't know. Is that the word? Yeah. Okay.
I will say that because the first game, like, okay, so my theory on if I ever become a game composer, I think that the game should speak for itself. I don't think that video game composers should outshine the video game. I think it needs to meld together. But that's just my theory. And again, we're talking about me, a simple man. But with Hudson, he's like, no, screw that. I'm going to be the star here. And just goes bananas. I don't know who composed the first game. Actually, now that you say it, I'm actually about to look it up. But yeah, like you said, I think the first game, I think it was perfectly fine. It was a good soundtrack. Wow, there's no playlists. Watch Dogs 1, and it just says various artists. It's weird. But yeah, I think the first one kind of melded into the game. But Watch Dogs 2 just took the reins. He's like, I'm going hard on this one. And he did. Hudson Mohawk really did on this one.
Well, that's what I'm kind of curious, because I like you said, it was tough trying to find something else that he did video game. I'm just trying to figure out if he just did he just come in that hard, regardless of the project? It had nothing to do with the he just comes in that hard. That's
if you listen to his other music, it's bananas. I think he has 17 albums, and it's all like electronic experimental club music, and it's just as wild as you think it is. Like, if you see the Watch Dogs 2, let's put it this way, is the most tame of his music. He goes insane, dude. Like, if you look on the cover art of Cry Sugar, it's just like some marshmallow men in thongs. It's so weird, dude. But I like that. I like that about musicians, where they break the mold and they say, no, I'm going to make the rules here. I'm going to make my own genre, and this is how it's going to be. And I appreciate that so much, dude, that they just make their own path. And I think Hudson does that. He's like, I don't care. I don't care what the rules are. I'm breaking them. Here we are. But he did that for the DedSec soundtrack. It was really good.
All right, well, on to your honorable mentions. Couple of games you're looking forward to here. The first one's going to be a Switch-specific release. It is out already for PC. However, will have just come out by the time you're all hearing this. Dave the Diver, and I need your best DO when you do it, because I'm going to infect everyone that I insist they do the Holy Diver. They insist they do Dave the Diver like that. They got it. Yeah, you got it. I'm going to have that stuck in everyone's head by the time this is all said. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, yeah, no, Dave the Diver. So I played the demo on the Switch. I played for an hour and I said, I'm sold. I'm straight up, I'm sold. I didn't play this on Steam, but when it was I knew about it, but then I played it on Switch. I played the demo on Switch, and I uninstalled it. I was like, I don't want to play anymore. I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold on this game. Running, again, I'm a line cook, so working in restaurants is just what I do now. To go underneath, catch your own sushi, run the restaurant with it. Oh my God, I love the gameplay. I'm in love with this game. When it comes out, don't care about Mario Wonder. Don't care about Spider-Man 2. I'm going to be playing Going to be playing that one.
Excellent delivery. Hey, so I have to ask you, so this was not called out, the soundtracks weren't called out for the future games, but I'll tell you, this is a soundtrack that I don't know how much you listen to. I think you're gonna vibe with this one, and this will end up on your soundtrack list for sure.
I did. I think it's Japanese Breakfast, isn't it?
I couldn't find out for the life of me. I was trying to find out who did the soundtrack.
It's not Japanese Breakfast. I remember now. I looked in the credits, and it's two people. I think they're American too. The rest of the team is in Korea, I want to say, or China. I think it's China. But I believe the composers, there's two composers, and they're both in America, I want to say. I did some research on it, because I did vibe with the music, and it's 2 people, and I can't remember for the life of me what their names are. I just really vibed with the game for sure.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting, and again, every time you mention the line cook thing, you can ask my wife of me smelling like coconut shrimp through my through many years working in the restaurant that I just came home smelling of it in my pores. So.
Oh yeah, Liz loved it when my wife's name is Liz, by the way. Liz loved it when I worked in the Italian joint because I always brought home risotto. I was the risotto guy too, so I would make the risotto.
Not easy,
and it's not, but I did it, I nailed it, and I became the risotto guy, and I always brought home risotto. So she loved it, but yeah, no, she loves the smell of me now. It's free cologne. So,
oh, I'm gonna follow that up. Yeah, but a fun little game though. You know, like you said, you've got the diving sim, the fishing sim aspect of it, and upgrading your equipment. Then you got the restaurant sim side of it too. That you're just building Dave's little empire, and you got the music vibing with the whole way.
Oh yeah, dude, I love the game. So yeah, I'm gonna be hard on Dave the Diver for a long time. I'm gonna replay it. I don't care. Love Dave the Diver. Such a good game. But there's a second game that I'm most anticipated on. And
so he's doing our segues for us, Ray. He's taking over.
Sorry. Second game, the second future game. You gave us a studio. You don't nod. And first of all, I thought it was a game. Hit it. I was like, oh no, this is an entire studio. And I saw there was a game coming out end of the month. Jusant is coming out end of the month, and I have great music in the game. And I thought this has to be it. I might buy this game myself. It looks so good. But apparently that's not the game we're talking about, right?
No.
I'm just gonna throw all these notes away that I have here.
Yeah.
What other game is Don't Nod coming out with?
So this is a funny story. So Don't Nod Montreal specifically are the 2 producers of the Life is Strange series, the original Life is Strange 1 and 2. That is Michel Coe and Luc Bagadost, which is the 2 highly creators of Life is Strange. Life is Strange now is in the hands of Deck 9. My opinions on that will stay silence on that.
You're not alone in those opinions. Moving on.
Changing studios.
Yeah,
always fun.
They Don't Nod said, we're so impressed with your work. We're going to open up a new studio in Montreal. So it's no longer in Paris. They moved both of them to Montreal, and they're making a new IP. And me and my other co-host on Strangecasts, which is a Life Strange podcast I do, we follow this new IP that they keep hinting at. It looks very much like Life Strange. There's some teaser images out to it. All we know is that there's VHS tapes involved, and there's 2 playable characters. They've done the mocap, so the mocap is done for it, or like some scenes are done for it, but they're very secretive about it. But it is those 2. It is both Michel Coe and Luc Bagados that are taking the reins on this. So if you've been missing the original Life is Strange games, Life is Strange 1 and 2, this is the game to keep your eye on. We don't even know the working title. But what me and Adnan, the other co-host, are theorizing is that you're going to see probably a teaser trailer at the Game Awards this year.
I would say I'm looking at Don't Nod again, another studio that I've never heard of before. I went on the website and I want to play every single game that they have on.
Yeah,
just from their pictures.
I played Harmony: The Fall of Reverie. That's actually a really cool. If you're really into visual novels, that's a really good game to play. Honestly, if you're into visual novels like Coffee Talk and Last One Night Stand, I believe this is the game. But yeah, Harmony: Fall of Reverie is a good one. But yes, more specifically, Don't Nod Montreal's new IP. Keep your eyes peeled. That game's going to be a banger for sure.
Wait, I was going to say a second. Hold on.
I was going to say just go also go get Jusant when it comes out in the month.
Yes, Jusant, which is actually
I'm in for this one right here for sure.
The art director behind Jusant is the same art director behind Life is Strange. So same kind of art direction as that guy.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking up Strangecast, Life is Strange fan podcast. Hang on.
That's me.
He just tossed it. He tossed it in there without.
It was the most subtle plug. We did not have notes on this one.
Yeah, sorry. I don't really share it on Channel 3. I don't know
why.
Oh, that's too bad.
I don't know.
Now it's getting shared.
I'm just building
This ends
up
now.
to the
By the time this
confidence.
episode comes out, you will have a trailer here that we will have embedded into this episode somewhere.
I know.
Yep, it's done.
Yeah, no, it's
It's a
good
video
show.
game podcast. This is a place for that.
I know. Like I said, I'm just building up the confidence for myself in Castor Garden.
What's it called again? What's the name of it?
It's called Strange Cast. 2 hyphens.
Strange
A Life is
Cast.
Strange
Oh, you
fan
found it already.
podcast hosted by Player One versus the World creator Adnan Riaz. Forgive me for any mispronunciations there. And Games and Groceries podcasts Adam Evil, which is our guest in question today.
I also did another video game podcast called Games and Groceries for a while. And
Yeah,
then
so we're seeing. We're uncovering mysteries live.
I know. Yeah, no, it's we actually just interviewed the Deck 9 producer Stefan Frost.
So I see.
Yeah. Sorry.
You're gonna get a DM from Joel over this one by the time all is said. Now, what are you waiting for? You want us to set an account up for the podcast? I can set you a separate podcast account up if you want.
I know. I really should. I've been telling Adnan about Channel 3 a lot, but he is such a British person, dude. He's like, bloody hell, I'm not taking it until I know it's real. I don't know. He's just very stubborn.
Well, guess what? There's an Apple app and everything as of today. So
I know. That's what I'm telling him.
It's in the app stores, baby.
I actually told Stefan Frost while we were making this, I told him about Channel 3 in the show. I was like, you gotta get yourself on Channel 3. He's like, I'll have to check it out. I was like, check it out sooner.
Now I gotta know. Now I got a different direction. I'm sending my indie developer emails to. There we go.
Yes. Yeah, no, he's such a nice guy, dude. Stefan Frost. He's so cool. Yeah, no, I do Strange Cast. And I did Games and Groceries for a while. Brian McGinnis was a guest on a couple episodes, but yeah, I dropped that to focus more on music. Yeah.
Hence that connection with Brian you had mentioned previously. That was subtly dropped in there also that I was wondering about.
Oh yeah, Brian is such a good dude, man. Like the first time we met in Long Island Retro in 2017, just a really nice guy, man. He brought me over to his table at Playable Characters Podcast. He's like, get over here. I'm like, oh hey man. He's like, do you like podcasts? I was like, yeah. Well, we interview all these guests. I'm like, this is weird. It's like, but he's such a cool dude. Man.
I just listened to the Soda Popinski episode. You want to hear one that went off?
Dude.
That was all over. They got just ripped up by him.
Oh my god, he's such a good comedian, man. Like he's such a kind man, Brian McGinnis. I don't know. I can't imagine a day without him, but good guy. Cheers to Brian McGinnis while he's on here, you know.
I think that's it for the Don't Not Studios tour that got derailed at the end there by these.
Yeah,
You just keep dropping these subtle little things, and I'm like, I can't let this one go because I'm like, wait, you have an entire podcast dedicated to this series of games.
Did I not tell you that I did the sound design for the Sony PlayStation? Like, did I not tell you about that? Yeah, I'm the sound designer behind PlayStation.
There you go, Dan.
He's trying to believe me or not.
I'm doing my DiCaprio look right now. It's my DiCaprio Inception look.
Hi, I'm Adnan, one of the co-hosts of Strangecast.
And I'm the other co-host of Strangecast, Adam.
Yes, this is Strangecast, Player One vs. the World's Life is Strange centric podcast. We mainly talk about Life is Strange, but we also talk about games from Deck 9, from Square Enix, from Don't Nod, and we also bring on people from the community of Life is Strange and also developers, and including voice actors. Many of whom have won awards for their performances.
So come check us out on all major platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Come check us out. Strangecast.
Cheers.
Yeah.
On to a quest. A question from the Channel 3 history books. Your quest today is, what video game system have you done sound design for? No, I'm kidding. Let's go with this one. We're gonna ask you, pick one Sega Genesis game to recommend.
Oh man, can I say Earthworm Jim? Like, cause that's the very first one that comes to mind. Earthworm Jim.
Let's do it.
Yeah, Earthworm Jim, man. I have such fond memories with. Yeah, I had a Sega Genesis growing up at my dad's house, and Earthworm Jim was just a wild game with a really good soundtrack. I feel like someone mentioned it on this show before. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember who it was, but I'm saying it. Like, I don't care if you said it. I'm saying it now. Earthworm Jim. Let's go.
Go for it. Yeah, like it was this whole media blitz at the time too, for lack of a better way of putting it. Like we're putting everything out there. We're doing comics and cartoons and video games. We're doing it all.
Yeah. Oh man. I didn't even mention Golden Axe. Oh man, but no, I'm sticking with it. Earthworm Jim. Let's go.
Let's hear about Golden Axe, because I want to hear about that too. Like what? So because that was your. So the funny thing is, I asked because that was your answer on Channel 3 originally. Because I always, when I'm doing this, I'm always curious. I'm like, I don't look at the response for it. So why one over the other? Why Golden Axe?
Golden Axe was just it was my first time in like a fantasy, like it wasn't really an RPG. It was more of like an action adventure game. And I remember as a kid, I played this game and the potions and riding dinosaurs. And again, I was like, I don't know, probably 11 years old, 10 years old. And you're just like also a pretty lady that was on the screen. Like I was like,
yeah, the barbarian. Yeah. You get your barbarians. You get your Exactly.
I was a very young boy, and I started to.
I have confused feelings seeing her driving swords and axes through people. Yeah.
Like, no, Mom, I'm just playing because she's powerful and it's a good character to play as. No, it was my first time into like a fantasy like action adventure game, and I think it changed my perspective. I'm like, oh, it's more than just Sonic the Hedgehog. Like there can be like really good gameplays, combat, different power-ups. Because you also have Altered Beast that had the power-ups and the game adventure, sure, but like Golden Axe just hit different. I don't know what it was, but I played it every single weekend. I was getting a Golden Axe or Earthworm Jim. Those were my jams right there.
They were both more playable than Altered Beast. I know that much. Like Altered Beast has had a tough aging experience. Yeah. You could still pick up. I mean, Earthworm Jim's still a solid platformer, but Golden Axe is just like classic arcade game right there. Like
I can roll with it all day, every day. Like Altered Beast is it's an acquired taste for Altered Beast for sure. But no, Golden Axe straight through. I'm gonna make those two, Earthworm Jim and Golden Axe. I'm just gonna take advantage of the question there.
Go for it.
Yeah.
And a final question we ask everyone: what's been your favorite feature in Channel 3 so far?
Can I be really dorky and say the community? Like the community is my favorite feature. Like, I don't know. Like, I know there's quests and I know that people say like, oh, the events and all that. I want to say that the community is my favorite feature because that's what really stuck me. Like, that's really what glued me onto Channel 3 because you have, other social media pages that are just super negative and want to just spew their opinions. But every single person I've interacted with on Channel 3 is really kind, positive, passionate about video games. They've supported me and my music, which really actually boosted me to keep like not quitting music. But the community in of itself of Channel 3 is probably my favorite feature. It's what keeps me coming back to Channel 3 for sure.
Dan, will you accept that answer? I accept all answers.
I absolutely accept that answer. It's almost like it's a place where you could talk about, having a specific video game podcast dedicated to a series of video games that are popular and have been discussed elsewhere before. But, hey, whatever.
Sorry, man.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
And good. With that, we've made it to the end of another What Are Your Three podcasts. Thank you, Destroy the Grave, Castor Garden, podcaster extraordinaire, for being on the podcast with us. You can find the podcast at c3.gg/podcast, dropping every Wednesday morning at 3:33 a.m. Eastern on all the major platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Ray. Dan Tucker puts this all together. And for our executive producer, Joel Willis, have a good day, everybody.